I often said the highest expression of life is not a salary, not a title, and not a Mercedes. The highest expression of life is to live a good life. But here's the paradox, my friends. Most people never stop to define what a good life actually means. They run, they work, they collect things, they count money, but they don't count moments. And then one morning they suddenly wake up and realize they have everything except the one thing that was worth living for. I believe that life is not the sum of achievements, but the harmony of values. Because a good life is when your actions align with your soul. It's when you don't just survive, you grow, you share, you love, you learn, and you feel each day as a gift. Today we'll talk about 6 things without which a good life is impossible. 6 foundations that made my life real, not just successful. And at the end, I'll share a simple practice you can do right after this video to start truly living today. So stay with me, click subscribe if you haven't already, and let's discover together what it means to live well, not tomorrow, but now. There's something strange about our modern day chase. We strive for success, but so rarely stop to ask why. We want more money, more opportunities, more recognition. But what if all these mores are meaningless without the right why? I've seen many people living in big houses with empty hearts, and I've seen those with very little radiate happiness, peace, and gratitude. This taught me one simple truth. A good life is not measured by what you've accumulated, but by who you've become. I was born on a farm in Idaho. We didn't have an excess of money, but we had an abundance of honesty, love, and work. My father often told me, "Son, if you do your part, the land will do its part." That became my first life lesson, about sowing and reaping, about cause and effect. Later I realized the same applies to the good life. It also has its own laws, its own seasons. There's a time to sow, work, kindness, discipline, and there's a time to reap, peace, joy, respect, love. But most people want to harvest without planning anything, and then they say, life is unfair. But life simply replies, you didn't do your part. People often ask me, Jim, what's the secret to a happy life? And I always say, happiness is not something you chase, it's something you grow. It's not a trophy you get when you reach the finish line. It's a state you create along the way. A good life is not a destination, it's a way of traveling. And my friend, you can begin this journey from any point, even if you're at 0 today, even if you're tired, disappointed, or feeling lost. Because a good life doesn't begin with circumstances, it begins with decisions. I once stood at a crossroads myself, young, broke, with dreams that felt bigger than my abilities. That's when I met a man who became my mentor, Earl Shoaff. He told me words that changed everything. Jim, if you want things to change, you have to change. It hit me like a punch to the heart and a wake-up call all at once. Because until that moment, I was trying to change everything except myself, the company, the boss, the government, the weather, but not my own philosophy. And when I started working not just on my job, but on myself, everything around me began to change. A good life doesn't come by accident. It comes by awareness. It's when you live not on autopilot, but with intention. When each morning you don't just wake up, you awaken to new thoughts, new opportunities, new ways to love. It's when you don't just work, you create. You don't just spend time, you invest it. You don't just dream, you plan and act. And most importantly, when you remember that the true value of life lies not in what you acquire, but in who you become in the process. Sometimes people ask me, can you really do it all? Work, family, growth, rest, spirituality. And I answer, you don't need to do it all. You need to live it all. Because a good life is not about speed. It's about quality. Not about how many hours you work, but how you spend those hours. Not about how many friends you have on social media, but how many of them are real. Not about the number of opportunities, but your ability to feel them. I believe we're all created not just to live successfully, but to live beautifully. Because beauty is when the outer and inner are in harmony. When your actions reflect your values. When your words align with your deeds. When your day ends not in exhaustion, but in gratitude. That's what a good life is. Not loud, not perfect, but real. And today I want to share with you my short, but perhaps most important list. 6 things without which a good life cannot be built. They're as simple as the soil I grew up on. and at the same time as deep as the roots of a tree that gives shade, fruit, and meaning. When I began to live by these 6 things, life stopped being a struggle and became an art. Because a good life is not something you get, it's something you create, step by step, day by day, choice by choice. So if you're ready not just to listen but to build, stay with me. Because ahead we'll go through each of the 6 foundations of a good life. And maybe, just maybe, today you'll find that missing piece that will make your life not just longer, but deeper. Productivity. When I say that word, most people imagine long hours, to-do lists, red deadlines, and tired eyes. But real productivity isn't about getting everything done. It's about getting the right things done. It's about inner honesty. Are your efforts actually moving you toward where you told yourself and your family you want to go? I know how easy it is to confuse busyness with progress. I used to wake up early, come home late, stay busy from morning till night, and remain stuck at 0. It felt like I was working like an ox, but no harvest ever came. Then a mentor told me, the problem isn't the clock, it's the philosophy. It's not about how much you do, but who you become while doing it. That's when I first saw the difference between activity and achievement. From that day forward, I decided my productivity won't start with a calendar. It will start with character. I grew up on land where every step depended on the seasons. Planning on time, that's productivity. Pulling weeds when no one sees the benefit, that's productivity. Waiting for rain without panic, without yelling at the sky, that too is productivity because patience is part of the work. On the farm, I was taught to view a day like a field. There's a row for strength, a row for thought, a row for love. If you plow only one, the others will grow weeds. In the business world, I saw the opposite extreme, people plowing others' fields to exhaustion, for ratings, for praise, and for getting their own. Then they wonder, we worked so hard, but our own home feels empty. Real productivity begins when you do something daily for your most important fields, your career, your health, your relationships, your spirit. And yes, I said daily, not when there's time. When I was 25, I had coins in my pocket, nothing in the bank, and anxiety in my heart. I made excuses. The company doesn't pay enough, the market's tough, the timing's off. But a wise man looked at my paycheck and said, this isn't all they pay. This is all they pay you. Become a person of greater value, and the paycheck will catch up. I didn't agree right away, but the facts were stubborn. There were people in that same company, in that same market, doing better. Why? They weren't just working at their jobs. They were working on themselves. They were refining their skills, their language, their discipline, their mindset. That's when I made my first adult decision. Every day from now on would include an hour, not for my boss, but for my future. Reading, note-taking, mental exercises, small improvements in communication. The goal was simple. I will become a person who knows how to offer more value. And here's the twist. What happened wasn't what I expected. I was hoping for a bigger paycheck. What I got was a bigger person in the mirror. The paycheck came later. But that wasn't the best part. There's a dangerous trap many hardworking people fall into. They confuse other people's priorities with their own. Someone calls, they run. Someone asks, they nod. Someone yells, they put out fires. Eventually, their life is run by fires. The secret of productivity? Take the wheel back. The morning is your ally. If the first hour belongs to the world, the day falls apart. If the first hour belongs to you, you set the rhythm. I had a ritual in hotel rooms before speaking gigs. Silence, a few pages of a wise book, 3 lines in a journal about yesterday, and 1 question for today. What's the one thing that will make today a win, even if the rest goes sideways? And I fought for that one thing like a farmer fights for the first rain. Can you guess what happened to my results? Yes, they grew. But more importantly, my respect for my own word grew. And without respect for your own word, all planning tools are just pretty covers without a book inside. Another key, your body isn't a trophy shelf, it's an engine. For a long time, I thought productivity was all about mind and willpower. Then I learned, your body is the battery of your will. Rested eyes think differently than red ones. Clean nutrition equals clear decisions. A walk isn't lost time, it's an investment in focus. I taught myself to say, rest is part of the work. and to say it without guilt. Because in a field where the soil is depleted, seeds don't sprout. You might call this recovery discipline. Here's the strange part. Once I gave myself permission for legitimate breaks, my go mode became 5 times more effective. Turns out productivity is about wise rhythm, push, pause, push. Think about that today when your hand reaches for another late hour at the screen. Now here's the key distinction that changed my life: working in your work versus working on yourself. When you work in your job, you complete tasks, move projects forward, answer emails. That's necessary. But when you work on yourself, you expand your capacity, become calmer under pressure, clearer in speech, more flexible in thought. The first kind of work gives you today's result. The second multiplies all your tomorrows. My mentor used to say, if you work only at your job, that you'll earn a living. But if you work on yourself, you'll earn a fortune. And I've tested this. It's not just a beautiful phrase, it's a formula. Income is a side effect of growing your personal value. Raise your value, and the numbers will follow. But there's resistance. That inner voice will whisper, if only you had more time, if only others didn't interrupt, if only circumstances were better. Let's be honest, friend, circumstances are rarely better. The wind has its own plans. Your job is to learn how to hold the sail. One more twist: discipline removes the burden of decisions. When something becomes what I do every day, your brain stops negotiating. You don't ask yourself every morning if you should brush your teeth, you just do it. Same with productivity. 10 pages of reading every day, notes every day, 1 key action every day, a short evening review every day. Small steps, but no gaps. That's a snowball. Eventually, from the outside, it'll look like luck, and you'll smile. Luck is just doing the right things long enough and not quitting before the harvest. Let me remember my father. He was over 90, but never missed life. Rodeos, softball games, concerts, church. He was out every night. Why share this story in a talk about productivity? Because productivity isn't just about business, it's about presence. If you know how to be in your work, you know how to be in life. If you've trained your focus, you can listen to your spouse, hear your child, see your friend. And believe me, the one who knows how to be makes fewer mistakes in doing. Clarity in the heart brings clarity in action. And one more thing, people can hear the texture of your voice if you're living well, like it shows. In meetings, on calls, in the silence after a speech. A well-lived day sells your idea better than the most expensive presentation. Back to the craft. I always carried a journal in my bag. I called it my idea bank. When a thought sparkled, I caught it on paper. Because memory isn't a bank, it's a sieve. I trained myself to notice who spoke truth yesterday, what worked today, where did I slip. 5 minutes of such honesty can save you 5 hours of self-deception. That too is productivity, not running from the truth. You can't improve what you don't measure. You can't fix what you don't admit. Ask yourself quietly at night, what did I sow? What did I reap? What will I do a little differently tomorrow? Not out of guilt, out of dignity. Real progress loves the honest. And finally for today, but not the last in life. Productivity is the courage to say no to what doesn't serve your yes. When I learned to decline politely, I made space for what matters. Paradoxically, the less I tried to please everyone, the more my influence grew. People trust those who hold their course, and they'll follow those who can let go of what's non-essential. Remember, every yes to a small thing is a no to something important. Productivity isn't about doing more, it's about choosing better. So to sum up, real productivity isn't about speed and burnout, but clarity and value. Not about punishing yourself, but respecting your word. Not about miracle tools, but about small daily habits. Reading, note-taking, 1 key action, a brief honest review, and smart recovery. That's where the good life begins. And now, here's a little tease. At the end of our video, I'll share a simple exercise that will help you rate your productivity on a scale from 1 to 10 to 10 and turn tomorrow into the first day of a brand new chapter. But that's in the practical part. Coming up next, my friend, is the second foundation of a good life. We'll talk about friends, real and accidental, and why without them, even the best productivity becomes just a cold list of tasks. Don't go anywhere. Good friends. I once said, True wealth isn't just full pockets, it's full evenings. And who fills our evenings? Friends. Not your career, not your titles, not your new watch, but those few faces who know everything about you and still love you. I had a friend like that. We laughed, argued, made plans together. One day his heart stopped at 53. I remember the empty silence after the phone call and one clear realization. True luxury isn't in hotels, it's in the people beside you. Since then, I've said, friendship is perhaps the best support system in the world, and like any system, it only works when you invest in it. I sometimes jokingly ask my audience, if you were unjustly locked up in a foreign jail and allowed one phone call, who would you call? I know who I'd call, the one who wouldn't ask questions. Just show up and get me. That's the definition of a true friend. But there are also casual friends, great for parties, for laughs, for warming up a room. And they matter too. A good life knows how to balance both circles, the close and the wide. The trouble begins when we expect rescue from people meant only for celebrations or throw parties with those meant for deep conversations under a kitchen lamp. The wisdom of friendship lies in knowing the difference. On the farm, I learned early, one man in a field is no warrior, even if it's his own field. One hauls hay, one fixes the fence, one brings the water. Business is the same. Friends aren't just applause, they're honest mirrors. Sometimes the best thing a friend can do is ask a hard question. Do you really want this, or do you just want the praise? There was a time I got caught up in others' expectations and nearly betrayed my own philosophy. What saved me was one clear thing, a conversation with a friend who wasn't fooled by my polished words, but saw my tired eyes. After that talk, I adjusted course. And yes, the profits came back, but more importantly, so did my sense of personal truth, and that's a currency money can't buy. Here's a paradox. The busier you are, the less time you have for friendship, and the less time for friendship, the emptier your success feels. When we don't invest in people, our victories have no one to call at night. That's why I made a rule. There's a dedicated block in my calendar for friends, just as real as a business meeting or a workout. A phone-free lunch, a quick no-reason call, a postcard saying, I remember. Small things? Yes. But they're the bricks of the bridge that'll carry you through hard days and won't collapse. Real friendship doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for presence. To show up when it's inconvenient, to listen when you'd rather speak, to tell the truth when silence would be easier. I've known people who gave brilliant speeches on stage but didn't know how to sit quietly in a hospital room. Their speeches inspired, but their friends felt alone. A good life demands a different balance, loud victories and quiet hugs. Trust me, the market senses when you're real in the small things. It shows in your voice, it's visible in your eyes. Business trusts the people whose friends trust them. One more thing, to have good friends, be a good friend. Friendship isn't a transaction, it's a matter of character. Be the one who remembers birthdays without reminders, who sends an article that could help, who asks, how are you really? And doesn't rush to fix things. In my youth, I thought the goal was to find the right people. Over time, I realized the goal is to become the right person, and the right people will come. Friendship follows the same law as farming. Sow attention, reap trust, sow generosity, reap support, sow loyalty, reap stories that warm many winters. Of course, it's not always perfect. Some drift away, some betray, some decide new rooms need new faces. It hurts, but don't close your heart. A heart hardened by resentment loses the ability to enjoy even new friendships. I've learned to let go respectfully and keep the memory without bitterness. And here's the beautiful part. Life has a way of returning warmth through other paths. One door quietly closes, and suddenly you notice a window you'd never seen. Keep your heart toned like a muscle. That's part of the discipline of a good life, too. Here's one simple technique that saved many of my relationships: an honest communication agreement. With one old friend, we agreed on 3 things. First, if something's wrong, we speak up quickly, no stockpiling unspoken thoughts. Second, we don't compete over pain. Grief isn't a race. Third, we celebrate each other's small wins because that's how big ones grow. You'd be surprised how many cracks disappear with such a channel. Some bridges even come back stronger than they were. And don't forget the wider circle, those you see rarely but share mutual respect with. Casual friends bring fresh air into your life. They open doors you didn't know existed, and sometimes become close. I love this habit. After each big speech, I connect with 2 or 3 people I felt a spark with and send a short note, not asking for anything, just gratitude. These are small seeds. Some won't grow. Others will become trees you rest under one day. Why is all of this so important to productivity and success? Because friendship is energy you can't buy. On a hard day, you can't always buy strength, but you can find it in a conversation, in silence, in laughter, with someone who sees you as a person, not just a function. I believe the one who has a solid circle of support works bolder, takes wiser risks, and rests deeper, which means they live better. And yes, friend, this isn't the end. Next, we'll explore something that nourishes the very root of a person, your culture and spirituality. And in the practical section at the end, I'll share a quick friendship self-assessment scale from 1 to 10. Not to judge yourself, but to see where to water, where to pull weeds, and where it's already time to harvest. Stay close. The best is yet to come. Your culture. When I say that word, many people think of museums and textbook history. But culture isn't dust on shelves. It's the pulse in your veins. It's the language you use to name things. It's the music that plays in your home. It's the ceremonies you use to mark what matters. It's even the clothes you wear to greet the day with respect. Culture is how you remain human among people. And my friend, each of us has not only the inherited culture of our people, but also the personal culture of our life. Both must be protected and nurtured, or they wither like a garden without a caretaker. I grew up where words weighed more than signatures. We greeted each other with warmth that smelled like fresh bread, and we said thank you not out of habit, but as a recognition of another's dignity. At a small cafe on the edge of town, my father had breakfast with farmers. It had its own music, laughter, news, short stories about harvests and children. That too is culture. A circle where people remember your name, where simple virtues are honored, where your presence matters. When I began traveling the world, I encountered different songs, different prayers, different clothes, and strangely enough, the deeper I explored, the more I felt my roots, what I would carry home and what would enrich my own culture. Because culture is not a wall, it's a bridge. There's another kind of culture, quiet but crucial, the culture of your daily rituals. I call it the culture of the home. Is there a time in your house without screens, when you hear voices instead of just sounds? Are there moments in your day devoted to wisdom, pages that teach, notes that preserve? When I started journaling, I realized writing isn't just a technique, it's a ceremony of respect for one's own life. You're telling yourself, my thoughts are worthy of paper, my observations deserve memory. That's how a personal culture of thinking is born. Neat, attentive, grateful. And soon this culture echoes in your business, in a letter written with dignity, in a meeting where respect matters as much as argument, in a speech that doesn't belittle, but uplifts. Language shapes the market. The way you name people is how you live. If your words are filled with contempt, don't be surprised when the day gives it back. If your language includes plenty of please and thank you, you'll find doors open more easily. I've said it many times, protect your language. It's your most delicate tool of influence. In it lives the music of your culture. You either tune your instrument daily, or you get used to dissonance. Try a small ritual, 1 sentence of gratitude in the morning, 1 sentence of respect at night, to someone specific by name. In a month, you'll see how the tone of your relationships changes, and the quality of your opportunities too. Ceremonies keep us grounded. We often underestimate the power of simple rituals, a Sunday dinner, a birthday photo, a small toast for a new project, a thank you card after a meeting. In business, it's called customer service. In life, it's called humanity. When I began intentionally weaving rituals into my schedule, I noticed I was less drained by chaos. Rituals are like lighthouses in the fog. They help you know where the shore is. They also train the heart in discipline. Honor and respect aren't moods, they're habits. Clothing speaks too, not about price, about attitude. When I wore a blazer to important meetings, I wasn't just wearing fabric, I was wearing respect for the audience. At church, in family gatherings, on stage, I wanted my appearance to echo my words. This isn't just a routine, it's a celebration of your attention. It's not etiquette for etiquette's sake, it's about an inner posture. I stand tall because I respect the moment, and trust me, the market reads these signals clearly. Culture is also what you allow into your home and your mind. One day I noticed that news and conversations can become garbage if you don't guard the gate. So I created a simple rule: entry by value only. A book that enriches, music that uplifts, a conversation that makes you want to be better. It's not escape, it's gardening. You can't grow a rose if you water weeds every day. Set a cultural filter for yourself. What enters my home, my head, my heart, and respectfully but firmly remove what steals your dignity. The power of culture lies in diversity. I've been lucky to see other shores, other tables, other prayers, other dances. I learned not to compare but to listen. And the deeper I listened, the more I loved my own. A person without roots breaks easily. A person with roots may bend, but doesn't break. That's why I say nourish your own and honor what's not yours. Attend concerts, plays, markets, buy tickets to what expands your heart. Don't skip life. It's also part of your culture. Those sunrises and applause, children's laughter, and the silence of temples, they make your soul more spacious. And a spacious soul can handle great tasks without losing humanity. There's a darker side too. Culture can harden and become dogma. Then it stops warming and starts punishing. I've learned to distinguish between principles and habits. Principles are roots. Honesty, respect, love. Never betray them. Habits are leaves. The form can change. New music doesn't replace the old. It adds layers. New words don't cancel native ones. They teach precision. Be loyal to essence, flexible with form. That's what makes culture alive. Why does this matter for a good life? Because culture is the foundation of influence. Your words are received not just for their content, but for the cultural code behind them. People are instinctively drawn to those who carry dignity, respect, the beauty of gestures, and honesty of intent. Culture makes you recognizable without a logo. Your style sets you apart, and style is culture in motion. When your personal culture is strong, you don't need to shout, you're heard. And here's one last small pivot before we move on. Culture without spirituality is a house without fire. Beautiful, but cold. Spirituality gives meaning to ceremonies, depth to words, warmth to music. It explains who all this attention, this honor, this please and thank you is for. That's what we'll talk about next. And in the practical section at the end, I'll offer some questions to help you assess your personal culture, your language, your rituals, your filters, your respect for the moment. Because a good life isn't just about doing what's right, and it's about doing it beautifully. And when beauty meets virtue, the warmth it creates is felt even by those who weren't there, but not all at once. The next step is the fire in the home, your spiritual center line. And now, in an interactive moment, I don't want you to pause the video, run to your notes, or wait for the perfect moment. Think on the move. Feel the answers in your body, in your breath, and how the tone of your inner voice shifts. I'll be asking questions, and you'll give yourself a score from 1 to 10. 1 means the fire is barely flickering, just a shadow of intention. 10 means it's alive in you daily, visible in your calendar, heard in your voice, reflected in your choices, and confirmed by your actions. Ready? Let's go. And if this resonates, hit subscribe right now. It's your way of saying, yes, I choose growth. Click like. It's a signal for the algorithms, but more importantly, a marker for yourself. I've made a decision. In the comments, write your 5 numbers. That'll be your little contract with your future self. First question comes from the word that starts it all. Productivity. How honestly are you doing the essential each day? Not just doing a lot. Rate yourself from 1 to 10. Don't think of the perfect day. Think of your average week, like an engine. Either it hums steadily or it sputters on half a tank. Was there one decisive action today that made other actions easier? Don't overthink. The first number that came to mind is usually the truth. Second question is about good friends. How much warmth fills your evenings? How solid is your inner circle, the ones you could call at 2 a.m. and they'd show up without asking why? Give yourself a score from 1 to 10. Picture a bridge across a wild river. If its beams are casual contacts, it sways in the lightest wind. If its beams are people tested by real journeys, it holds your weight on the hardest days. What number do you feel right now? Lock it in. Third question is about your culture, both inherited and personal. How consciously do you shape the how of your life, the words you use to express thanks, the rituals that keep you centered, the filters that block noise from entering your mind and home? From 1 to 10, how much space is there in your life for tickets to life, a concert, a play, a phone-free walk, a night of shared silence? Think of it like music in a room, sometimes barely audible, sometimes filling the space so fully you want to breathe deeper. What's your current volume? Fourth question is about spirituality, the fire in the home. How consistently do you have a moment in your day when you look above your tasks and below your pride? A prayer, meditation, gratitude, a short conversation with your conscience. From 1 to 10, is this fire just a holiday candle or a steady warmth in your daily life? Picture a winter stove. When it dies out, you don't freeze instantly. You get cold slowly and then suddenly. Choose your number and hold it gently without self-judgment. Fifth question, about family and your closest circle, about the details that build unshakable strength. How present are the faces of those closest to you in your day? A morning hug, a call between meetings, a glance that lingers, shared laughter before bed? From 1 to 10, how much does your day reflect that you're investing not only in tasks, but in the people who make you resilient on the outside and soft on the inside? Picture a garden. Trees don't scream that they're growing. They simply get watered and bathed in light each day. What season are you in? Drought or bloom? Keep the rhythm, don't stop, breathe. 5 numbers, and you already have a map. They don't decide your life, but they already speak truth. If you feel moved, share them in the comments. Any format works. Your honesty might inspire someone else. If you feel a pull, share one short action you'll take before the day ends. 1 page of reading, 1 heartfelt call to a friend, 1 screen-free evening, 1 minute of silence, 1 hug that says more than words. I read these not as reports, but as seeds. They sprout just when we stop waiting and start living. Now, a soft reminder, subscribe if you haven't. It's how we keep building this culture together. Hit like if this format helped, a small signal to a big world, and leave a comment about which question hit the deepest. Sometimes one honest phrase becomes someone else's reason to begin. Don't rush to conclusions. We're not chasing perfection, we're chasing progress. A 1-point rise next month is already a different person in the mirror. If you want to go deeper, revisit these 5 questions later tonight when the house quiets. Take a page, write your scores, add 1 sentence, why this score, and another, what will I change tomorrow today just by 1 point? No more than that. Let this be your quiet ceremony of respect for your path. And remember, you don't need to wait for a new year, a new quarter, or a new inspiration. A new chapter doesn't start on Monday. It starts with a decision, 5 questions, 5 doors. Open just 1 today. And next we continue the journey. The upcoming section will help connect these numbers with action, without drama, without strain, with the quiet strength of inner clarity. I'm here, and we walk together. So, my friend, well, we've walked a long road together, from productivity to the depth of friendship, from culture but to the fire of spirituality, from the outer world to the inner one. And now, as this video comes to an end, I want you to pause, not to stop, but to listen to how silence sounds when it's filled with meaning, because it's in that silence where the realization lives. A good life doesn't come from rushing, it comes from presence. I've lived through many seasons. I've seen markets shift, trends change, even people's belief in themselves fade and return. But there are things that don't grow old. There are 6 of them. And today, you didn't hear them from a speaker, but from life itself. Because these principles aren't about philosophy, they're about the soil you grow from. If you sow productivity, you reap achievement. If you sow friendship, you reap support. If you sow culture, you reap beauty. If you sow spirituality, you reap peace. If you don't miss out on life, you reap joy. And if you sow love in your family, Woody, you reap a strength no storm can take away. Remember I once said, if you want everything to change, change yourself. That is the formula for a good life, because life always answers you in your own tone, your own energy, your own character. Want more kindness? Be kind. Want more success? Become more valuable. Want more love? Learn to love without conditions. The world holds nothing back from someone who becomes the source. One time, before a big speech, I sat in a hotel room and thought, what if today was my last day? What would I say to help people not just live, but truly feel alive? And you know what came to me? Don't miss anything. Don't miss your child's smile. Don't miss a friend's quiet ask for help. Don't miss sunrises that may not come again. Don't miss the chance to say thank you, I'm sorry, I love you. Because all life's investments eventually expire, except one, the investment in moments. They become memory, and memory is proof that you truly lived. A good life isn't when everything's perfect. It's when everything's real. When you can laugh after loss, work after defeat, love after pain. It's when you don't run from life, you walk through it with dignity. And one day, sitting on your porch, you'll catch yourself thinking, yes, I didn't miss it. And you'll understand. That is what all the books and teachers were talking about. Not success, not victory, not triumph, but a simple feeling of peace when your heart says, I lived well. So if something touched you today, don't leave it here. Turn inspiration into action. Productivity begins with one small task. Friendship with one phone call. Culture with one word of gratitude. Spirituality with 1 minute of silence. Joy with one moment not missed. And love with one hug you didn't postpone. Subscribe if you haven't, not for the number but for the memory. Because we're building a space together where what matters truly matters. Click like if this path reminded you of who you are. And leave a comment with one sentence. My good life begins with, let your heart finish it. And may your day-to-day not just be good but meaningful. Because the highest expression of life isn't a paycheck, a title, a house, or a balance sheet. The highest expression of life is to live a good life. And if you heard that call today, you've already taken the first step. I'm Jim Rohn, and I believe your good life begins today.